And then
go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, like, so this is like really young in his upbringing. And
the freaky story that I heard was the mother. Did I just freeze up? The mother has John at the house with like her new boyfriend, and they're like sharing one bed. Like it's like the three of them.
Wow.
And it's essentially like the social workers kind of like this can't work, and so Mimi kind of officially takes to that. So there's a couple attempts for him to stay with mom Julia, but it just like doesn't, it's not good. She's a bit of a free spirit, and it doesn't really work out.
By most accounts, like, I can only imagine, like how conflicted she must have felt about the whole thing, and yet, like, it just sort of happened. It happened, but she's complicit.
She has three more kids, though. She has three.
That's what I was going to say.
That she raises. Yeah,
I didn't get there, but you're right. Yep, she did.
It sounds to me similar to the Elton John story, and I only know that story through that movie, so I don't know how truthful that account is, but it sounds similar to where he, his paternal, his father didn't really raise him, didn't really want nothing to do with him, and then got his own family later on, and like as he got older and he went in to visit him, and he saw how he loved his boys, then he never got that love himself. Did you guys see that movie at all? Familiar with the
that was good. I liked it better than the Queen movie.
Yeah, I've not seen that one.
The way they sort of portray it too is like, so the father, like Julia is like a bit of a flirt, and like, guys like her or whatever. She works in a pub, she works at a movie theater, and she's always a bit of a flirt. And and Alf pursues her, and they almost as a joke. She's like, I'll show my family, because the family didn't like Alf, that they got married, and they didn't live together for like, it was like several years after they got married.
There's accounts where he goes over, I think in the United States, I think he's in New York City, and he gets like, there's a paperwork snafu. He has been sending money home, so there's a semblance of being a husband and a father who's just happens to be away. And yet, there's accounts that I've heard where he runs some sort of paperwork snafu, but it's easier for whoever he's working for at the time, because we all know that the shipping industry is just so totally upfront about all of their, their doings. And it's easier for him to say that he jumped ship than it is to, he's got these legal problems with papers and this and that. But the bottom line is he stopped sending checks and stuff like that. And Julia and he's not a writer, apparently. Like, they're not, like, I don't know, but I've just never read any accounts where they're just like, they were prolific letter writers to each other. They like, I never heard that. So she just figures he's gone. Like, he finally abdicated his fatherly responsibilities, and she takes up with another guy, and she's out, like, she's running around.
She's going out. Yeah, she's pretending like she's not married the whole time, kind of thing. But the way it sounds like he writes her. Alf writes her, but there's not a single trace that she ever wrote him. Like, they have, like, at the docks, she goes and picks up the weekly wage or something. It's like the family wage, and it was like the shipping company would dock part of the pay or based on how much the thing, and they'd go and pick it up every week. And at one point, I think she goes and there's just the money had stopped, and apparently it turns out like he was arrested in some play, and it's kind of the story you're talking about, and nobody knows. It's like he always spins these threads, and he apparently got fired from another job for like stealing and reselling stuff, and he claims he was innocent, he was framed, but like everybody did it. Yeah, it was. So there's a whole lot of this, as you say, like sort of these seafaring rules, and they got to blame somebody sometime, and everybody does it. And blah,
how
blah,
old
blah,
are they when he's born? Are they like 19, 18, 19? That kind of like? Do we know the age?
No. She's in her early 20s, I guess.
Okay.
But they got
and he's older than her, and that's another point of contention.
Yeah, it's a couple of years.
It's not too unusual.
Yeah.
Her family, the Stanleys, didn't approve of him, and that's they just didn't approve in that sort of British sort of.
Wasn't there a
Catholic
Protestant thing too?
I don't know, John. If there was, I don't know. I don't care. I never heard. I never heard that one.
The family didn't like him, but yeah.
I never heard that. I never heard it raised anyway, because it didn't seem like any of them were particularly religious. It wasn't like John did go to. I think he did go to Sunday school and stuff like that. And,
he did. He actually stuck with it, and he says he did it because he got cash for it. Like he actually,
that's a great incentive.
Yeah. So
there's money involved,
right? You go to Sunday school, you're going to get a shilling.
Says like they would go to church, and John taught them how to skim off of the collection plate. So
nice.
Get that going for him too.
Well, but so in sort of reading about all their backgrounds, no one's sort of a surprise. Like the way you hear about, Ringo is sickly and as a result misses a lot of school, spends a lot of time by himself. Paul is like the charming, nice guy, and the neighborhood girls like him, and he does well, and he picks up music real quickly, and George kind of keeps to himself and is surprisingly self-confident and opinionated.
Did you guys read what I said about that though? I've always felt like when Paul has brought that up, and he's brought it up a number of times, where I've read it, seen it in different interviews too, where it's just like, and it's in anthology too. It's like, oh, George's father drove the bus. And the way he says it, it's just like, it's like cheerfully said. And yet at the same time, it's just it's almost like a slight, it's like just to remind you, like your dad was the bus driver. In the neighborhood.
But his dad, what I learned is his dad was like, I got to a decent
cotton salesman, Paul's dad.
Right. And then they nationalized the cotton industry, and he lost his job.
And he lost his job. I mean, he knew hard times, there's no doubt. And his mom was a midwife, a nurse. And so she's
the breadwinner most of the time. Yeah.
She made more money, and she also, because of her position, and it was a government position, they got a house out of it because she was in a government position.
Yeah.
Able to get like a better type of council house, Tony.
Yeah.
But it still was, whatever. 2 up and, maybe 3 up and 3 down.
I thought it was 2 up and 2 down.
2 up and 2 down was more Ringo's flat. So Ringo was the only one who really
Davies
knew.
Brothers.
Ringo knew like hardship. He's the guy from the Dingle. He's the guy from the docks. He's the only one
single mother
of them that's truly a docker.
His dad was truly gone like from day one. Like he,
and there's not a whole lot said about Ringo's natural father, that I'm aware of. They don't seem to know it doesn't come up much in any of the stuff that I've read. And I've read enough stuff about it. I'm sure you could.
Do any of these guys?
I don't know that I ever did a Google search on Ringo's. Ringo's real dad.
I gotta loan you the Deep Blue Ocean book when I get through it's taken me forever, but it goes.
I have it.
This is the crazy expanded one. It literally
life one, the volume 1, whatever.
Yeah, and it goes, but this goes deep. Like it starts in like the late 1800s, and where they're like the whole family. It's kind of crazy. Like there's so many friggin' kids, and it's like they all have like 18 kids, and like 6 live. Like it's like the death rate's insane. It's
Liverpool's
really
a huge, it's a huge Irish, it's a big Irish Catholic kind of like hotspot, because a lot of the Irish had moved out of there and moved up right over to Liverpool. And
exactly.
So consequently, you get that, traditional Catholic, children.
Every sperm is sacred.
The rhythm method.
Right. Do
The
these
original Mersey Beat.
do these guys know each other growing up, or how do they meet, or are they school chums?
Well, right at this point, that's the thing is I'm probably, it's like George and Paul are in the same school, but this is like 12 and 14 or something. Like it's later, than I thought, considering how close they actually physically live to each other. But they're essentially in high school, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And George is younger than Paul.
Yeah, but
there's no accounts of Paul and George having any sort of kinship prior to the Beatles. You know, like there is none. You know, so I'm not going to say that they're like friends. You know, but John's friends are Pete Shotton, Nigel Wally. There's a guy named Ivan Vaughn who's friends with both John and Paul, and so that was a connection between the two of them, and like the way that those two met. And John putting together the Quarrymen, they're all, you know, Len Geary is another guy. They're all just like friends with each other, and so is going to play the washboard, and you're going to play the wash tub bass, and you're going to
skiffle band,
and it's all ad hoc.
The skiffle thing,
for the skiffle thing, and it's all kind of ad hoc. And John just knows a few banjo chords on a guitar.
He learned from Julia,
that I think he learns from his mother. And you think he just slacks 2 strings on the guitar, Tony, and plays like on 4 strings.
Yeah, right. It's like you break a string. It's like that's what's left of the guitar. It's not, you don't get a new one.
Like he just kind of like, you know, but his mom had taught him a few things, so he knew like Cumberland Gap, or like, you know, a lot of the Lonnie Donegan-ish kind of
there was
stuff.
that total craze, and that's what really started selling the guitars. But the thing that I found interesting was the great story about how he had. I don't know how he got the first cheap harmonica, and he learns there was this. So Mimi would bring
to him. It was given to him by Uncle George.
There was Borders, right?
There was a border. You're right.
There was a border, right? The border said,
if you can learn how to play
some song.
Hold on, you guys are talking over each other. Chris, go ahead.
If you can learn how to play some song that they had, like, you know, Mimi like fell on hard times herself, even though she was pretentious. So the name of John's house, it has a name. The fact that it's called Mendips, and the fact that, like, you know, the British are fond of naming their quarters and stuff like that. But it's a pretentious thing. It just is. And she put on airs. And so, you know, it's still a humble abode. It's definitely more middle class, you know, like very middle class, maybe trying to be more upper middle class, but like, you know, Britain is still going through the rationing. Doesn't end until the 50s in Britain after the war.
The war rationing, yeah.
So they're like, right. And George dies. John's still fairly young. Maybe George died when he was 14. I think his mom died when he was 17. So he wasn't that young. But at any rate, like, you know, I think that just like all Britons, you know, at the time, and especially up north, you know, like it in a humble place like at Liverpool, they just knew how to conserve and stuff like that. And they got by. That said, like, she was really pretentious about that kind of stuff. And, but John definitely had it more easy than,
all the other ones.
Really, yeah. George lived in a way more humble abode, but in a really loving house, is what I understand. Like he and his brothers and his sisters.
He's the only one.
Very close.
The whole family.
Right. They're all like close family. Ringo is an only child. His dad splits, but his mom marries a guy named Harry Graves, and who's good to Ringo and stuff like that. But Ringo was sickly as a kid and stuff like that. You know, he ran around, he was passed around within his family as far as like babysitting chores and stuff like that as a kid. Like he spent a lot of time outside of his house, you know, but his mom always came home at night, but she did at least one job, if not two. She was a barmaid and stuff like that, but I think she also might have cleaned houses and stuff like that. And she just had like those kind of jobs. And